there's a lot of terms that get thrown around, and I guess the question we'd have is, you talked about the medical power of attorney, the financial or durable power of attorney, the executor, executrix. Is it, oh, you can have different people in each of those roles, and I guess also it's important, at least from our understanding, right? The power of attorney is they have power while you're here on Earth. The executor or executrix has power when you're not here anymore. So it's important that, right, some people will have this confusion. If you can go through the difference between that executor role, it says, oh, I have an executor, I don't need a power of attorney. Do you mind it? That was a lot to ask you, but just
Uh,
those different roles and how they can be filled.
yeah, well, first of all, they can obviously you pick, you select, you nominate who you want, right? So when we sit down with clients, we're explaining the function of each role. You're exactly right. That not to be too technical, we try to get away from people saying he's my power of attorney. The
Okay.
document is a power of attorney, but
Yep.
the person in it is an agent. Although I think that's probably not significant. Um,
Sure.
that person that you nominate either medically or financially to handle your affairs under a power of attorney is a lifetime distinction. So you are exactly right. We have people, someone passes away, they're still going to the bank using the power of attorney,
Yep.
signing checks. I don't think the police are going to break their door down and arrest them. But that document, the power of attorney dies when the principal dies.
Mhm.
And although that power of attorney may also be named the executor, that executor has to get appointed, typically through the Register of Wills office, and his power of attorney hat comes off and his executor hat goes on. Still handling financial decisions, liquidating, paying tax, consolidating assets, similar jobs, but very different in time.
Good.
Gotcha. And are these, if you name, so let's say myself as a client goes to Mac's office and I draft up my estate plan, and I name XYZ Bob as executor and Sally as my POA. Are these conversations that I should have with them? Should they know about it prior to the documents needing to be used?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, we urge people to do that. I've had some very uncomfortable situations. I had a situation where a person nominated a guardian to take their minor children, also nominated that person to handle the minor's inheritance in a trust, and person died. Lo and behold, the sibling they nominated didn't want to do it. Very awkward, right? So, and in that case, it was more so my plate is full. I have three little kids of my own. I don't have the capacity to do this. Um, going to your loved ones and explaining, hey, these are really significant decisions, and responsibility. Are you up for the task is key, because we do try to build into the documents that if Bob can't do it, Sally can do it. If Sally can't do it, Fred can do it, and have contingencies layered in. For that scenario where somebody doesn't want to do it, or Bob has died, or Bob is sick. So we try to get ahead of that, but I think it's good advice to have our clients talk to the people they want to name in these roles to make sure they're interested and want to do it. It's a good point.
Yeah, and you're kind of alluding at the fact that maybe someone might not want to do it. I personally have not been an executor yet, thankfully, but I've heard from many others that it is a big job, and you kind of alluded to that. Can you describe like why some people may be overwhelmed, why some may not be qualified, or any insight you have on that?
Yeah, I mean, without getting too far down in the weeds, if you think about it from 1,000 feet, someone passes away, their will is probated with the Register of Wills, the executor is appointed. The executor now has effectively a court order called a short certificate to carry around, to deal with financial advisors, to deal with banks.
Yep.
What we typically tell them their job is, again, from 1,000 feet, is to first identify assets and debts. So, do they own vehicles? Do they own real estate? We got to get our arms around And you can imagine that can be a huge job. People have business interests, farms, rental properties, vehicles, bank accounts, life insurance policies, retirement accounts. So the first idea is to get our arms around identifying what are the assets and who are the creditors, who do we owe money to. So once we've identified that, we start to put a plan in place of what assets the beneficiaries, and the executor is the one leading this march. The executor may be getting advice from me, but he's the client, he or she's in charge. Once we've identified those assets and liabilities, we start to determine what assets want to be retained by beneficiaries. Maybe somebody wants to keep the house, keep the car. So it's not a wholesale liquidation right away. It's talk, and that's a very, it can be an interesting experience to have, different beneficiaries want the same asset. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want it to diminish their share. Probably going down the weeds here. But
Right.
once we've identified what assets are going to be kept and retained in kind versus what assets are not, then we want to liquidate those other assets that we're not retaining, right?
Yep.
And we want to consolidate the sale proceeds into an estate checking account. So now we have sort of a general house account that the executor has a checkbook, and we are having the executor, not mix his or her own money with the estate. It's its own entity, has its own tax ID number typically, and we're paying bills and we're depositing refunds in and out of that account. That account is going to be our mechanism to file ultimately an inheritance tax return, right? For items that we can deduct. So again, identifying what we have, what we owe, consolidating assets. Once we consolidate assets, we determine, is the estate solvent? Do we have more money than debt? And if we have more money than debt, we start paying off the debt. We want to pay Pennsylvania is one, I think, of only 8 states that has an inheritance tax. So we want to keep that on our radar. It's due 9 months from date of death. So we're educating our executor about that looming deadline. If you pay it early within 90 days, you get a 5% discount. So we want to try to, our nice tight-fisted York County folks like those discounts. I know I do.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So after we've paid our debt and we've paid the tax man, we now have net numbers, right? And at that point, we're ready to distribute assets, distribute cash. That executor, we help him or her prepare an accounting that identifies we started with this, we paid this, this is our net number, this is how we're distributing it to the beneficiaries. And then we're going to send that accounting out to everybody and have them fly spec it and sign it.
Yep.
So that's how I would describe from 1,000 feet what an executor does.
And
and I have one other quick question on that before Damien jumps in. How would you advise someone to pick that person? Is it like pick the child that's the closest to you? Is it pick your estate planning attorney? Or maybe the person maybe you have a financial advisor kid. Do you just pick the most financially savvy? Anything on that?
Yeah, you're going to get different answers on that. I mean, my 2 cents would be who, the person's ability to handle, you don't have to be a financial advisor or a lawyer to be an executor. And I would even say, as someone that's a tight-fisted York County person, we attorneys, advisors are sometimes able to serve in that function as a trustee, as an executor, but we charge for our time. And so I think that if you have a family member that's up to the task, and we have to remember that family member still has a right to charge for their time. It always makes me feel good growing up here how many times I see people waive the fee. And these are my parents and these are my siblings, and I'm not going to take any money for doing that. It sort of makes you have some faith in society yet. But I think, to answer your question, we start with, do you have a trusted family member that can handle this, that has integrity, that has some basic financial skills? And I think if they check those boxes, that's more important than where they live. Nowadays we can use Zoom, we can have teleconferences, and you can handle things from afar. Although I have to temper that and say, if there's real estate to sell or real estate to supervise and watch over, you have to put that into the soup too.